I've never really been into these road trip films. I never have been. The only one that I can say that I really enjoyed was Euro Trip a few years back. And aside from that, I haven't really liked many. So when I saw the previews for this film, I wasn't really looking forward to it. It just looked like another road trip film. After seeing this, I actually really enjoyed it. It was quite a funny film. The plot to this film is pretty straightforward. These four guys go to Las Vegas to celebrate their buddy's bachelor party. They have a great time one night, but unfortunately they had such a good time that they can't remember what they did the night before. And their buddy, the guy who's about to get married, goes missing. So the three guys that are left set out to find their buddy before the wedding. So to put it simply, the plot to this film is basically a combination between Old School and Dude, Where's My Car? Except now it's Dude, Where's Our Friend? But again, this film is pretty funny. What I liked about it is that a lot of the comedy in this film isn't a bunch of gross-out humor, which unfortunately a lot of comedies nowadays like to do, resorting to a lot of disgusting images in order to get a cheap laugh or two. This film doesn't resort to that too often, although it did do that occasionally. Also, I found myself really liking these three main characters. I didn't understand why initially, but it suddenly dawned on me after I left the film. We've seen these three guys before. In fact, I grew up loving these three guys. These guys are Ed, Edd, and Eddy. And I really mean that. These guys take on the persona of every one of the main characters in that old TV show. Think about this. You have the scruffy guy who is playing Ed. He's the mildly retarded guy who never thinks before he talks. You have Double D, who is the pretty smart guy, however he's pretty much a pussy and never wants to take any action. And then you have Eddie, who's pretty much the cynical, maniacal jackass who always gets his way, but somehow you still like him. So these three guys are the perfect trio, just like Ed, Edd, and Eddy. So throughout this film, I found myself really liking them. And there is a pretty good connection between these three guys, even though they pretty much hate each other. Now, there were a couple of tiny things that did irk me with this film, that did kind of upset me. My first one is kind of a minor gripe, but it's still a problem nevertheless. There is a side character that comes in about halfway through this film, who happens to be Asian. And throughout this whole film, every time you see an Asian character, they speak with a very simple American accent. Yet, their leader, this lead Asian guy, speaks with the thickest Asian accent I have ever heard, and basically fulfills every Asian stereotype. And I found that really odd. Now, a couple of my best friends are actually Asian. I haven't got their word back yet from this film, so I don't know if they're upset by this. But that whole thing just struck me as odd. Also, there is a lot of downtime in this film. When the humor is going on, it's really good humor. But in between those parts when you're laughing your ass off, the movie tends to drag on a bit. And it's not that those scenes aren't funny, it's just that it just tends to drag on. So while the story is good, the comedy is good, the actors are good, this film does have its small problems. But still, this is an enjoyable experience, especially if you like these road trip films. So, final rating. This is one of the better comedies I've seen in a while, and while it wasn't the hardest I've laughed in a long time, it was still pretty good. I'm going to give this film 3.5 stars. After seeing action film after action film after action film this summer, this is a pretty good change of pace. And in this film, I didn't have to try to laugh. I actually had a good time with it. And one last thing I'll say before I leave you all. Heather Graham does make a small appearance in this film. Let me say how fast my emotions shifted from happy to pissed off in a split second when she came on screen. There's a quick scene which comes out of nowhere where she flips open her shirt and exposes her bare chest. And I just said, Hallelujah. Then, in that same instant, they block it out by a baby's head because she's breastfeeding. Hollywood, stop teasing us! Take care.